Greetings, traveler. I'm SnapJelly, and a very short point I want to make today is that some people have asked me, based on statements that I've made in the past, saying that if you use reproductions of historical armor as protective equipment in HEMA, that it's not very safe. Now, because of that, because of me saying that, people have asked me how historically accurate is HEMA actually if using the armor that people used back then will not protect you enough. Well, the answer lies in the technology that was available at the time. Right, just taking a look at a helmet. Doesn't really matter what helmet, a helmet, right? People have a helmet. Now, how do you kill somebody who wears a helmet, considering you can't hit him anywhere else? You hit him, for example, in the eye slits. Just one example, right? Because you need to be able to see, so there needs to be a hole in the eye. Back then, they didn't have anything that was strong enough to block a sword blow and would still allow you to see through it. So they could not cover the eyes. The eyes needed to be holes, and that was a slight weakness, but there was nothing else they could do. There just needed to be holes in front of the eyes. Now, this left you with being able to get stabbed in the eye. That was a thing that could happen to you if you would wear a helmet. Now, if you compare that to HEMA today, if you would wear a helmet rather than a mask for HEMA, any thrust to the face that you can get into your eye slit, and that can stab out your eye. But a modern fencing mask does not, considering it doesn't, break, because they are quite strong, but they're not indestructible, so they can break. But, regardless of that. That's just one example. They didn't have anything else. Now, if you would compare it to a modern, motorcycle helmet, I don't know how well that would actually hold up, because I haven't tested it. Somebody should test that. It would make for quite an interesting video, I think. But perhaps a modern motorcycle helmet would be way better defensive-wise than any medieval helmet would ever be. But the thing is, they just didn't have that yet. The helmets that they had back in the day, and the other equipment that they had back in the day, it was the best they could get, but it's not the best you could possibly get. And it still has weaknesses, and because of that, if you want to practice HEMA accurately, you are gonna have to gear up in such a way that you are completely protected, because that's the thing. You have armor. Back then, they had armor to protect themselves the best they could, but the techniques that they used were designed to kill the people who wore that armor. So wearing that armor and practicing those techniques is not safe. Now, I understand that a lot of you guys don't really know what HEMA truly is, and the simple explanation is that back then, when they actually used swords, people wrote down how they used the swords, right? Now, some, or not all, not nearly all, but some of those writings of how that they wrote back then, when swords were actually relevant, some of those writings survived, and we now read those writings and we practice what they did back then, right? We do the things that they back then wrote down what you should do with the sword. So we're doing exactly what they back then told us to do, as best as we can. But, what that leaves you with is getting stabbed in the eye, for example, because if the writing that you read speaks about how to kill somebody in full plate armor, then stabbing somebody's eye is a thing that you can do. But if your opponent actually wears armor in a HEMA tournament, then you don't really want to kill him. So if he really wears a helmet, and you really stab him in the eye slit, then he really dies, and you don't want that. And that's where modern HEMA gear comes in. Modern HEMA gear is there to protect you completely, and still allows you the best mobility and the lightest weight that it could possibly have. And it simply makes up for the flaws that the medieval designs had, if possible. And it's not just the gears, actually. It's also the weapons. The weapons are more flexible than actual medieval swords were. And they're also occasionally a bit lighter, and arguably you can say that that is not the right thing to do, but again, it's for safety's sake. It's because the edge of a sword is not very large, and even if it's not sharp, you put a lot of force on a very small surface area, and like I said, the mesh of a mask, for example, is very strong, but not unbreakable, so, that's dangerous. It's all for the sake of safety. Medieval equipment is very good. It was the best they had. It was quite simply the best they could ever have at that time with the technology of that time. But with the technology we have today, we can simply get way better, stronger, more effective equipment. Equipment that's safer to use. because the techniques that they used were created to kill the people in the armor that they had. Right? So if you use the armor that they had, and you use the techniques that they had to kill the people in that armor, then you're gonna die, and you don't want to die. That's basically it. So, that was it for today. If you stuck around this long, you might as well subscribe, and also don't forget to like this video, because why not? You know, well, I don't know, just click like, it makes me happy. And thank you for joining my quest, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Bye guys.